Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for our Webinar Wednesday series. My name is Sharon, and I'm with SIPA, your Colorado Government Authority, helping you get more information and services online and offering Colorado government's grant funding. Joining us today are Toby Switzer and Rob and Andrew Schwartz from Cornflower Labs, who will be discussing a hot new topic on all of our minds, AI and chatbots. Before we get started, please go ahead and turn on captioning if you need or desire, and note that during this webinar you are muted. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function, and for any other comments or information that you would like to share, the chat box. We will unmute folks at the end for any remaining questions that you have. We'll have 4 poll questions during the webinar and a post-webinar survey, and sincerely hope that you'll provide your feedback. Please join me in welcoming Rob, Andrew, and Toby. Also on the call is SIPA's Sales and Marketing Director, Beth Justice, and Customer Success Director, Dwayne Tucker, if you have any questions for us. Thanks again for joining us today. Gentlemen, please take it away.
Sweet. Thank you, Sharon. Much appreciated. Welcome, everybody. Big thank you to everybody here. It means a lot that you guys are attending because we think sharing this information with as many people as possible is super valuable. And big thank you to SIPA as well for giving us this platform to present on. So I'm sure you guys know AI has sort of been the talk of the town these days. There's tons of buzzwords in the space, lots of opinions that get thrown out. And such. And today we just want to give you guys some concrete knowledge on AI projects relating to government and how carrying out one of these projects to completion can bolster your organization's AI skills for the future. So for today, first we're going to talk about who we are and why you should trust and listen to us, and then our take on AI in general. We're also going to go into the product itself and give a live demo. We're going to talk about the benefits beyond the product when you're building a chatbot. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. I'm Toby Switzer. I'm a proud member of Cornflower Labs and a main developer on our chatbot projects. And I'm going to pass it to my teammate Andrew Schwartz shortly to tell you a little bit more about us before we get into the project itself. And to kick things off, we kind of just have a question that our group here is curious about. And we want to see upfront what everybody's involvement with chatbots so far in their organization is. So we'll see how this poll looks.
Does your organization have a chatbot? Yes, not yet, but interested? No, but maybe some point in the future. And I don't know what a chatbot is. I could have answered that way a few years ago. All right, that was a quick one. Here we are.
Oh, sweet. Okay, perfect. Oh, yes, I can see the results. That's great. Okay, sweet. So we got 15% of people saying yes, that their organization already has a chatbot. 38% saying not yet, but we're interested. 46% saying no, but maybe sometime in the future. And then nobody here doesn't know what a chatbot is, which is great and makes sense. They're going around these days. So cool. Okay, and I'll hand it off to Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks, Toby. My name is Andrew Schwartz. I'm a partner at Cornflower Labs. I'll share a little bit about what we do, who we are, and some of our experience working in this space in the state. So we're a Colorado company. We offer various digital services, but they're always human-centered. We're always interested in these types of high-impact projects that can provide a lot of value for our customers. And we stand out as a team that's fast, that's thorough, and that's people-facing. And so we do this because we really believe in the opportunity to improve the effectiveness and value of government with technology. And at the end of the day, everyone that is on our team is also going to be customer facing. And so our developers are working with you in terms of troubleshooting and designing the systems that we're working on, along with our project managers, our accessibility experts, and so on. At the end of the day, we're not an AI company. We're a digital services company that also does AI. So a lot of our work is with AI. A lot of it's also with non-AI solutions. So a lot of work on modernization, digital training, and digital portal systems, for example. Can share a little bit about our background too as a company. We piloted the state's 2025 Gen AI approval process and worked with the state to build a deep understanding of how to build robust, monitored, and controlled AI solutions. Our partners have various backgrounds, but some of them are from Silicon Valley, some of them are ex-government employees. And at the end of the day, we kind of bring this type of mix to bring best practices from both domains to build long-lasting and cost-effective digital systems. So in addition to our government focus, we also work with some research teams, including some of the leading AI research labs in the country. And our philosophy when it comes to these types of tools, when it comes to AI, is that there's a huge opportunity to improve the way that public interacts with government. And we want to help bring government closer to the people that y'all serve. So we have another poll question here about kind of leadership within your organization and support for AI. The question is there leadership support in your organization for AI? And the answers are yes, my leadership wants to see AI use. No, my leadership is not interested in AI use, or I'm not sure.
All right, and here are our results.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we have, this is very interesting. So we have 83% of people are saying, yes, my leadership wants to see AI use, and a handful of folks that said, I'm not sure, and a couple of folks that said, no, my leadership isn't interested. And this I think tracks a lot with what we've been seeing in that a lot of leadership and director level folks are saying, yes, we want to do AI, right? And I think we're seeing a lot of folks that are at the manager level or at the staff level that are saying, great, like how do we do that, right? Or maybe you're seeing there are opportunities of maybe this is something that could work with AI, but it's not really clear of how you can actually go from, an idea to actually getting something into production. So this is something that we've done with government partners in the past, and we're hoping you can kind of take away a little bit from our conversation today of how that actually works, right, in practice.
Sweet. Okay, so now let's talk about what Cornflower Chat actually is and what building one of these chatbots looks like. So yeah, Cornflower Chat is our version of this very popular AI powered tool that we've been talking about, a chatbot, and we like to describe them as specific and restricted knowledge systems built directly on top of your organization's resources and content. And there's a few unique and key points that come with this, in particular, how we build them. And so the first here being that the chatbot we produce is super precisely scoped. I feel like when most people think of a chatbot, their mind goes to one of the general knowledge chatbots, such as ChatGPT, that a lot of people interact with on a daily basis. And you can ask it anything you desire. I mean, you can ask it how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, anything, right? It'll answer anything. But when we build these for specific organizations, we don't want it to be able to answer all of these sorts of questions. We want it to only be able to pull information from the sources that your team wants to provide it and only interact and answer questions under the domain that you guys work with. The second piece here is that the chatbot we produce is regularly updated. This one is pretty straightforward. Nobody wants information to get out of date. And so we make sure that the content supplied to the chatbot is up to date and the most recent. And this can be done through a mix of manually updating explicit sources that you want to provide to the chatbot, and also an automated process of gathering information about your organization that's already out there on the web. The third piece here is that it's rigorously tested. We think that many people, when starting to think about using AI, become concerned and maybe have questions such as, what if it hallucinates? What if it says something that we don't want it to? What if a user tricks it into saying something mean or inappropriate or biased, which is important to avoid, especially in a government setting. And so to combat this, our team uses state-of-the-art testing tools to ensure that we comply with leading industry benchmarks. And these tools are really cool. Actually, they run the chatbot through like thousands of insanely creative prompts in an attempt to get the chatbot to crack. And it's like they word them in different ways. They make the chatbot play games, and yeah, it's really cool to see how you can sort of red team these things and make sure that any iteration of what you're building is 100% compliant with these benchmarks. And then the last piece here, which sort of wraps everything together, is that it's built with your team's personal engagement. And so while we're building this, we take input every step of the way and tailor every part of the pipeline to your guys' needs. So, for example, if you need it to be faster, that can be done. If you need a different tone when answering questions, that can be done as well. If you need it to be extra strict on any given topic or explicitly avoid something, that can be done too. We have another question here that we're super curious on, and yeah, I guess you can start it and then I'll read it. So the question is, what is your biggest fear about integrating with AI? And the options here are: it will fail or actively cause new issues, it will hallucinate and provide misinformation, nobody will actually use it, or my organization doesn't know how to use it.
Great. Those answers are coming in fast and furious. I love it. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. This is cool. I like the polls. I wasn't sure how it was going to work, and it's awesome.
It's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, couple more seconds, and here are your results.
Sweet. Okay. So we have 29% of people answering that it's going to fail or actively cause new issues. So it looks like there is some concern that it's kind of finicky maybe. 60% of people have the biggest concern of it will hallucinate and provide misinformation. That's interesting to hear. And then two minor options. 6% said nobody's going to use it, and 6% said my organization doesn't know how to use it. Okay, that's cool. So it seems like a big majority of people are in the first two categories where they're not sure if it's going to work properly or it's going to cause new problems or provide misinformation. Okay, that's cool. Okay, sweet. So another thing here that we wanted to talk about is, when is a chatbot the solution? Our team believes that a chatbot can be a solution in a lot of cases, but not always, right? You can't just throw AI at any tool and expect it to work perfectly. So how do you know if it's the right time to build one of these things? Based on many government teams that we've talked to, there's a few common pain points and recurring indicators that point towards a chatbot being the right solution. So some of the pain points that we've seen across multiple teams are things like, and I'm sure you guys have heard some of these as well, or maybe even experienced them too. Is staff answering the same questions over and over by phone, email, and in person? Through all the channels of communication that you guys have, you may answer the same questions over and over. Another one is that there's no way to track what residents are actually asking, or having no way to identify the most common questions. And so this is, if questions are coming in through a bunch of different channels, it's hard to track and see what the most important ones that should be being answered are. And the third one is that critical information is scattered across many different locations, such as PDFs that may or may not be publicly available, web pages, or individual staff knowledge where people within the organization are super knowledgeable, but that information isn't out there outside of their heads. Um, and then similarly, some more indicators of when a chatbot is the right solution, but kind of said in more of a solutions-oriented manner, is your team may be spending significant time on repetitive informational requests. Chatbot can fix that. Residents may need to questions answered outside of business hours or during peak volume when things are very busy. Again, you want to understand what your community is asking. You want to see what your content gaps are and what it's difficult for users to get information on. And you may have existing documents that can serve residents better, and aren't out there or accessible. Actually, let me go back really quick. I have one more thing I wanted to say. Another point that's not on this slide is just, another reason that you guys might want to build these is just gaining more experience with AI. If your team is future facing and looking at doing more stuff, AI is here and it looks like it's here to stay. And so just getting your feet wet with a project involving AI is another great reason to do a project of this type. So now, what does building one of these actually look like? We built one of these with the CDPHE team, and specifically water permitting. And so I kind of just wanted to tie back the main points that we were talking about earlier of what a chatbot or what Cornflower Chat is to concrete examples that we've done in a project already. And so looking at this first point here, we work closely and collaboratively throughout the entire project. That's that personal engagement piece from earlier. So like, for example, us at Cornflower, we didn't know too much about water permitting, at least I didn't. And so what did we do? We engaged with subject matter experts from CDPHE who specialize in this, in order to begin to understand things like how questions should be answered, what sources should be provided, and what topics are most important when we're building the chatbot. The second point is, we built the chatbot again directly from their own documents, policies, and permitting resources. And so in practice, this looked like collaborating with CDPHE, and I remember that they really wanted to limit what the chatbot would answer. They specifically didn't want overlap with any other internal groups. because there's a lot of permitting, and like so they didn't want it to be able to answer questions on air permitting, for example. And so this required being very strict about what sources were supplied to the chatbot and making sure there was no overlap. And then the third thing here is, again, ensuring answers are scoped, accurate, and grounded in the approved source material. And this relates back to our rigorous testing strategy, where one, we ensure the chatbot is safe to use and there won't be any malicious output. Two, we ensure that the content that is getting outputted is correct and is answered in the way that the CDPHE team wanted it to be. And then third, we iterate, right? So if something isn't perfect, or if CDPHE isn't happy with how a question is getting answered, we iterate and we test again, and we update the sources, update the wording, and we fix it. That's the nice thing about these kind of projects too, is that we can iterate and change any part of it. And then the CDPHE team left us with a quote that we really like as well. They said, "The smarter the tools that we use, the smarter we become." And we really like this quote because it looks deeper than just the product that comes out of the project. And it starts to think about like the overall mindset change that your organization receives from doing the process of building the project. So again, it's more than just the product, and it's talking about the mindset change that you gain as well. And I know Andrew will expand on this later. But yeah, that's the project that we did with CDPHE. And so now I want to switch it over to a live demo and just take a look at these and ask it some questions and play around with it for a little bit. So yeah, on this screen, we kind of put together a demo of 3 different chatbots. That's why it might look like there's a lot. On your site, there would probably be one of these and have the little pop-up in the bottom right. But again, we wanted to show it for 3 different groups. And so that's what you're looking at here. This one on the left is specifically built on CDPHE and water permitting knowledge. So kind of like the project we were just talking about before. This middle one is for a small town named Sandy City, Utah. And then this third one on the right has information about SIPA. And so I'll open these all up and we can start to ask it some questions. Again, there wouldn't be three on the screen at the same time probably, but this is for the demo's purpose. And so I want to hammer home a few points here. And the first one is about these being narrowly scoped. And so, for example, this first chatbot here on the far left has information on CDPHE and water permitting. And so if I ask it something like, "Can you tell me about parks in Sandy City, Utah?" we would expect, and it won't be able to answer questions on that. Because again, it's supplied only with information about water permitting. And so yeah, we see, sorry, can't help with this request because it doesn't know about it. And so then if we ask it something in the realm of water permitting, like what is COS? Which, since it's in the domain, it will go ahead and answer it for us. And it'll say that COS is the Colorado Environmental Online Services platform. And it'll give us sources that we can click on and get more information ourselves manually as well. And so to highlight this point again, if I go and ask the same question, such as, "Can you tell me about parks in Sandy City, Utah?" to the Sandy City, Utah chatbot, it'll have information and be able to answer it for us. So yeah, it'll say Sandy City has many beautiful parks. It'll again cite its sources and give us a link that we can go click on to get more information. Another point that I want to hammer home here is the malicious part. And so if I ask the same question, but ask it to, I don't know, say with profanities, which, for example, if again you asked a general chatbot this question, it would alter your request and give it to you in any form that you wanted. But if I go ahead and say this, it'll say that it can't do that. There are guardrails in place to prevent the malicious requests, and it will either refuse or rephrase it and answer in a correct and acceptable way. And then just to give a normal request here, looking at the SIPA chatbot, we'll just say, can you tell me a little about SIPA? And see what it gives us.
Oh, and here's where you make me all nervous to make sure that I had the right thing on the website.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. And so, like as Sharon is saying, this is going to be pulled from sources that were either explicitly provided or information that was already on the website. And so it's super important that the information there is accurate. And this is a good way to double check that. And so yeah, we can see again, gives us a ton of information, cites its sources, and yeah, so that's a little bit of a demo there. I also saw that a question came through on the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and wait and answer it during the Q&A if that works with everybody. But I've seen it. It's there. Okay, cool. And then just moving on from the demo, we have another question that we're curious on, and we wanted to ask, what barriers do you see to implementing an AI tool in your organization? Some options here are cost, perceived complexity to set up, leadership or staff buy-in, or explicitly my organization's AI policy prevents me from using it. And us at Cornflower are curious about this.
And I made this one a multiple choice because I figured there could be multiple reasons that people can't implement it, right?
That's great. I like that.
Alrighty. Well, here we go. This is interesting.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so the majority of answers, or I guess it's a little different because it was multiple choice, but 65% of people said or checked off cost as an answer. 42% of people checked off perceived complexity to set up. 31% said leadership slash staff buy-in, and then a minority, 8% of people said my organization's AI policy prevents me from using it. Okay, interesting. Cool. I feel like this is a little bit to be expected. I'm a little bit thrown off by the perceived complexity to set up, which is kind of cool to see as well. So, okay, sweet. And then moving on to be on the chatbot, Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks, Toby. I want to talk a little bit about how working on an AI chatbot can help develop some of these skills that can provide benefit to your organization beyond just the actual, product of the chatbot itself, right? So we're looking at kind of this, if we zoom out a little bit, right, we kind of have this rise of large language models, we have this rise of artificial intelligence, and we're kind of at this point of like, all right, we're seeing, a lot of organizations that are saying, wow, like we could probably use this in certain ways, but it's not clear how we can actually implement these types of things. It's not clear how we can go from these products exist or these opportunities exist to actually making them provide value within an organization. And so one way that we see these types of projects is a sort of on-ramp, right? Where what are the kind of AI competencies that your organization is going to need to be effective in using AI? And using that as a jumping off point in terms of, great, yes, we're building a chatbot, but also how are we building these skills within your organization to be successful with owning a type of AI product or with doing AI projects in the future and developing the ability to kind of see how these can be successful, right? I want to talk about this kind of question around hallucinations and misinformation, right? We saw I think it was about 80% of folks that responded to the poll question were saying, right, this is kind of the number one concern that we have. I think these are the turnkey competencies for your team, kind of throughout your team, right? And your use of AI in the long term to help everyone on the team understand, okay, why do hallucinations happen, right? How can we plan for this? How can we mitigate this type of risk? How can we kind of develop a monitoring and controlling strategy that lets us test, right? And lets us kind of be proactive in terms of saying, we know what types of questions we get, and we know that we're not hallucinating in them, right? I think more than anything, before I get into the details here, these types of approaches are all multi-layered. And so, for example, when we're talking about hallucinations, one of the things that you can do is you can limit the source of information that you're getting, right? You can say, we're only getting information that we've already published, right? That our webmaster has already worked on, that we've already approved to go public. And in this way, you can say, you can cut out sort of a large portion of this. And then when you add in testing on top of this, you're saying, great, we only have information that we own and that we control. And we're also able to test against the types of questions that we know that we get, right? And that monitoring controlling piece of saying, well, we know what questions we actually get in production, right? And so if we're finding new questions, we can monitor and we can say, great, here are the gaps that we have and correct for that, right? Maybe there's information that we don't have on our website yet, but that we're discovering that is an information gap because of this type of chatbot, right? We're getting questions and we're realizing we don't actually answer these questions for our customers, for our residents. So to get into kind of some of these specific competencies, when we're talking about project planning, understanding the scope of an AI project, right? And talking about guardrails and red lines. And so if we're building something with AI, what is it supposed to do and what is it not supposed to do, right? And these are sort of critical questions that anyone doing an AI project should be asking. How are we planning to monitor and manage risk for the system? And what is it that we want out of an AI solution, right? Are we interested in reaching more people? Are we interested in making resources more available to our residents? Is there a cost in terms of how we're reaching them? How does this work with other types of engagement, right? If we have phones or emails or other ways for folks to get in touch with our organization. And again, I think the real opportunity that we see as an organization here is this ability to bring taxpayers closer to their government, right? Closer to solving their problems. I think there are a lot of instances, for example, that we saw with CDPHE where you have a lot of back and forth when you're applying for a permit, right? Where you're saying, this is my best guess as an applicant, and I'm going to submit it to the state, and the state's going to review it, and they're going to say, well, you were close, but there's actually a piece of information that you were missing, right? And so then you have this whole process of investment from your team, right? In the case of CDPHE, to review something, and sort of this pain point from submitters where they have to submit something and then amend make amendments because of the review and then submit it again. And so in this type of use case, we're able to say, great, now you have this information closer to you. And so now I think we're seeing the ability to reduce that type of cost, which is great for your organization. It's also great for the people that interact with it. So lots of opportunities here in the planning realm. When we're talking about executing, testing, I think, is the number one thing. The best way to know that something will work is by confirming that it works how you need it to. And I think the really exciting piece about these types of systems is that they're very testable. And so if you want to say, how does the system respond to this type of question? How does the system engage when somebody asks about something we don't want to talk about? So for CDPHE, for example, we worked with the water division. We did not work with the air division, right? And the air division has a very similar type of system. And so one really important business requirement that they had was making sure that this was not doing anything for air, right? They can't have that sort of reputational risk of having a system that belongs to one division that's engaging in work with another division, right? The great part of this is we can test this, right? We can build systems where at every stage, whether that's pre-deployment or in production, where we're testing against whatever the business needs of the customer are and making sure that we're getting the results that we want. And we can validate that both internally and with the subject matter experts to say, great, this is exactly how we need the system to behave. Another piece in executing is data quality and availability. And so where is the data in your organization and how available is it to an AI system? We're also interested in kind of co-designing systems to meet business needs and technical best practices. And so we're engaged with research on the very cutting edge of AI in terms of looking at where are these capabilities going, what are the kind of weak points in these types of capabilities, and contextualizing that to your organization. And the last piece is sort of benchmarking against other systems, right? How has this problem been solved in other cases, right? What has gone wrong in those types of solutions, and how can we learn that and bring that expertise to your organization to make the best possible product? When we're talking about monitoring and controlling, we're looking at, more than anything, establishing a feedback loop to remediate gaps. So one example that we saw with CDPHE is that we were looking at the information that they had already published and had online, right? And so we worked with them to identify what exactly is the information that we want to include, what are the websites that we're including. And one thing that we noticed is that there were multiple versions of guidance around a particular topic. And this is because the guidance had changed over time. But one of the results of this was recognizing, okay, we're as an organization communicating to our stakeholders something that's confusing, right? Where we have two different versions of information about the same topic. And so engaging in this feedback loop to identify, okay, when we test this question, we're not getting the answer that we would like to get, and finding the underlying cause, which is actually we're not expressing this information on our website in a very clear way currently. And so the outcome there was to say, here's an opportunity to sort of improve our information ecosystem, right? All of the information that we're providing to other customers and improving the organization's capabilities, not only in the chatbot, but also in their website as well. We're also talking about monitoring risks. I think I spoke about before in terms of coming out of the planning phase to say, okay, what are the things we're most concerned about and executing those plans? And then there's a coaching piece that I think underlines all of this. We're really interested, again, in developing these capabilities in the people that we're working with. I think it's such an early time for these types of technologies, and to have the opportunity to build up these skills and to build up these capacities and answer questions about, hey, why does the system behave in this way, right? I think that kind of underlines all of our engagement where we want all of our customers to leave this type of engagement saying, I'm ready to do my next AI project, or I'm ready to understand how I can actually implement something that, I don't know, maybe I've been turning around for months in terms of making my organization successful with AI. So we're looking at kind of three groups of sort of advantages, maybe you could say, of what it would look like to work with us on this type of project. And again, our goal really is to solve both a business need for improving information access and to help your team develop its skills for best using AI within your organization. So on the left, we're talking about organizational insights. To what extent is your team documenting processes, for example, right? How much implicit knowledge do you have? How difficult is it within your organization to make your knowledge usable by an AI system? So this is a type of thing where, the ability to engage with an AI system is very dependent on the type of information that you can provide it, right? And so doing this kind of audit or sort of process of understanding what are the gaps that we have within our own information within our organization that might be making it more difficult for us to use these types of systems in the future, and laying that groundwork and that planning to facilitate those capabilities in the long term. In the middle, we're talking about sort of AI project skills. And so this is a little bit of what I was talking about on the last slide. The number one thing here, I think, is risk literacy, right? So understanding how AI systems work, right? And at varying levels, right? But when we're talking about hallucinations, for example, what is going on there, right? And with that understanding, we can then sort of move to the next step. We can then design around it, right? We can then design risk mitigations. We can then design approaches to succeed. But that first piece is that literacy, is that understanding. And again, I think the testing focus is also key here, right? Recognizing that AI tools are excellent candidates for testing. And that is going to be critical in most any risk mitigation strategy. The last piece on the right here is talking about cultural growth. So building an on-ramp with folks who have experience in deploying AI in these types of highly regulated contexts and have experience working with cutting edge or working on cutting edge research, right? With AI capabilities and reliability and benchmarking to help your team stay on top of what is frankly a overwhelming environment, right? We have updates that are coming out about new AI systems and new AI models and new capabilities daily, weekly, right? And so building this type of capacity to understand what is important and how is this going to affect my organization and what maybe isn't so relevant to me right now. So all of these are kind of things that, in addition to developing a system, we're also really focused on developing your team to be ready to engage with AI more in the future. So back to kind of the Cornflower chat piece in particular, I want to kind of pause for a second. If any of this seemed interesting today, I would invite you to share your email in the chat. If you share your email there, we'll reach out and we can set up a custom demo for your town or for your agency or for your fire district or wherever you're coming from today. And we can set this up based on your website. And we've seen this to be very powerful for folks that sort of understand, okay, I get the concept of what a chatbot can look like, but to actually be able to play around with it and say, oh, wow, this is how my information shows up in this type of interface can be very powerful. So I'd invite you, if you have a moment, to share your email in the chat and we can follow up about this in the future, probably later this week. So I want to move to some questions and answers here. I know we had a couple of questions in the chat, and so maybe I'll start with those, and then we can open that up to the broader group.
Sweet.
So
Oh yeah, you can start. I was gonna say we could
yeah,
also
yeah,
give everything a second. But yeah, I know that was a ton of information. There was a lot there. I think yes, some questions have already come through. There's two in the chat here, and then if you click on the Q&A button, Andrew, there's also one in there. It's like a
okay,
different location, but yeah, and
awesome.
yeah, you can start to answer these if you want. I can chime in too.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll start with Alexander's question. So Alexander was asking, what tools or practices do we use for evaluations and observability? I think this kind of goes back to the sort of multi-layered approach, right? I think without getting super technical, we're basically setting up systems where with any engagement, we're identifying what are the kind of the core questions that we're designing around, right? Who are the kind of user profiles that are going to be using this type of system, and what are the questions that we're asking? In some cases, that information exists, right? Because there's already a support team that's working with customers. And in some cases, it doesn't, right? And so it requires some sort of ideation. But we're basically taking that type of information and putting it into a system where we can generate these sort of thousands of questions that are fulfilling these benchmarks, right? So they're benchmarks from NIST, they're benchmarks from other leading AI organizations that are kind of identifying a lot of these risks that exist with AI systems, and then letting us facilitate that type of development to make sure we're meeting all these requirements. In terms of observability, this is also multi-layered. So all of the conversations are going to get logged into a database system, and we can see not only the questions that were asked, but also the sources that were cited, potential sources that might have been used but weren't used in this particular response. I mean, a lot of information that's kind of happening behind the scenes that all ends up in a sort of tabular database format. There's other observability pieces that go on maybe at a more technical level. I'm happy to share more if you have specific questions about that too. I think looking at the next question, Sammy is asking, what is the underlying tech stack behind these chatbots? Yeah, this is a great question. So I'm not sure what the right level of detail is here, but I can give this a go. And Sammy, if you have more follow-ups or anything, let me know. But these systems operate on Python. I think behind the scenes, basically any type of AI system is going to be using what was sort of called a foundation model. And so these are the models that are produced by Google for Gemini, for example, or by ChatGPT or by Anthropic. And so behind the scenes, we're using these models as well. And then I don't know, a lot of it runs on sort of cloud architecture. So we're using tools like AWS as well to kind of support this. Like I said, if you have more specific questions, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Yeah, and then Andrew, there was a specific question about what technologies and LLMs does Cornflower use to facilitate these chatbots?
Nice. Yeah, I see this from Cordell. This is a great question. So this is a yeah, I'll kind of talk about this topic really briefly here. So the short answer is that we're currently using Google's Gemini. We use different parts of so there are different pieces of the system that kind of have different roles, right? So one of these roles, for example, is what Toby was talking about on the demo. So when you're asking a question that, or really when you're asking any question, we have a sort of subsystem that is checking to say, hey, is this question appropriate, right? Is this question meeting the guidelines that we've co-designed for, um, making sure that this is the type of thing that we want to be responding to, right? And again, talking about layers, I mean, this is one of many layers that goes into the system, but that particular system is maybe using a different LLM or a different model than the core system, right? Which is maybe kind of synthesizing the documents on your website. So in this case, we're using Gemini and various Gemini models for all of these pieces. But we've also designed this in a way that recognizes that the frontier of where agents are, or excuse me, of where LLMs are going is changing, right? And so our system is set up, like I said, to be very testable and to be able to facilitate these types of shifts where maybe there's a world where there's a better model that comes out in the fall or in the summer, and we can test that very easily and then sort of swap that in quite effectively to then improve the results that we're having with our system. So the short answer is right now we're using Gemini and various Gemini versions, but we're designing this in a way where it's possible to switch that or to improve that in the future. It's a great question.
I noticed when you Toby, you mentioned the chatbots are a great way, a good entry to utilizing AI. And
Mhm.
as you went on through the presentation, 42% of people see there's it's really complex to get into it. And I think in listening more to you, it becomes clear that since it's built on a website, right? At least these chatbots, and you limit it to the information that you've put up, that kind of means you have to go back through and reevaluate your content, right? And if you've got hundreds of pages, that's a lot of information. But it's also a good thing to do on a regular basis because you've got to make sure it's up to date and current and accurate. because things change, right? And it's a hard thing to do because you have to set aside time to do that. And it's not, most of us are so busy during the day just dealing with their tasks and getting the next things done that we need to get done that we don't always prioritize that. But I think that's a really important point that just as important to do.
Agreed 100%. And in a lot of ways, that's the hardest part, right? Like the technology behind it is there, and we've built them before. And you're right. A lot of times the most difficult part is going through your documents and updating wording and double, triple checking that everything is up to date and said in the exact way that you want it to be said. Yeah, no, 100% agree.
If anyone else has questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. We can unmute you, or you can throw it again in the Q&A or the chat. This has been amazing. Thank you for the information that you all have presented. I really appreciate it.
Of course, and thank you. And we can go back to the demo too if anyone wants to ask something or yeah, anything is on the table.
All right. Well, it's quiet group, so we will let everyone go if that's. Oh, wait. How is this different from building a chatbot using Copilot Studio?
Hmm.
That is a great question. I don't know about Copilot Studio. It's not a product that I've used. So I'm not sure if I can really comment about that, but it's something I'll definitely look into. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have any experience with Copilot Studio as well, actually.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We really do appreciate you being here and spending your time with us. If you have anything else that you want to ask, if something else comes up, you know how to get hold of all of us. Or if you want to get more information, more specifics, or if you want to get a quote. Don't forget you have 6 days left to submit a microgrant to us, and until April 10th for our Gov Grants programs that are currently open and accepting applications. Please, please, please submit your projects. We would love to see them. We have some great upcoming events on April 8th, which got rescheduled from April 1st, will be Kaizen Labs and their mobile reservation systems. April 15th, we've got MS coming in for cybersecurity. May 13th, Tyler, Colorado, and their AI-powered assistants. And then May 27th, we're going to have the National Cybersecurity Center. So some good stuff before we take our summer break. Our regional workshops are back and starting April 15th in Glenwood Springs, April 29th in Huerfano County, and April 29th in Delta County. So if you're in those areas, please come join us. We'd love to hang out with you for the day. We've got all of this information on our website, and if you subscribe to our newsletter, it's all in there. So make sure you read through that. And then if you need for anything else from us, you know where to find us. We'll be getting this up on YouTube later on for anyone who wants to watch it again or share it with colleagues. So look for that. And again, thank you for joining us, and we will wish you a fantastic day.